My name's Evan Davis, and I'm going to show you how to use GrandMA3. Let's not waste any time, let's get right into it. So assuming that you've downloaded the software off of the MA Lighting website, this is the first screen that you're going to see. So over to the left side, we're going to have this menu with a gear icon. We're going to click on that, and we're going to go to Patch. If you're new to lighting, then I would definitely recommend you watch some prereq videos as far as what a fixture is, what patching is, and how to set up a basic rig. This video isn't for you, and it's not going to teach you how to do that, but it will teach you how to use GrandMA3 once you've gotten to that point. So if you feel the need to, click off this video, learn about that, but you're not here for that, you're here for GrandMA3. So let's continue. So this menu here is your library menu. What you're going to see is that you're going to have all your manufacturers on the left, all your fixtures in the middle, and all your modes in the right. So your manufacturer is what company makes the light, your fixture is what is the actual model of the light, and the mode is the channel mode that they will be in. So if we pick out any random light, I'll pick out, using the search function up here, I'll pick out any random moving head, an Era 800, why not? So this bar over here is going to be your name. That's where you want to name your fixtures. We're going to name this Era 801, and I'll show you why in a minute. Let's say we want 12 of them. And our fixture ID, we'll start them off at 101. If you've used any other consoles before, you'll understand this, but if you haven't, that's okay. Grouping your fixture IDs by fixture type in groups of hundreds is common practice. It's just easier to keep yourself organized. So let's put this in the 101 range. We've got 12 of them here, and we've named it Era 801. So please, the patch down here, when it says 1.001, the first number is your universe, and anything after the period is your actual address. So this is channel 1 of universe 1. So as you can see here, they've incrementally been named because of the fact that we put the 1 there. So Era 801 all the way down to 12. Perfect. Alright, let's put in some new fixtures using the Insert New Fixture button here on this bottom tab. It brings you up with the Show menu. This will show you every single fixture that you've already patched in your show. So what we want is a new fixture, so we'll go over to the Library tab and we'll find a new light. Let's do a Quantum Wash from Martin. Oops. And we'll leave it in basic mode. Alright, we're going to do the same thing we did to the other fixture. We're just going to name it. We'll do Quantum Wash 1. Let's put 13 of them in there, and we'll start them off at fixture ID 201. Alright, and let's create it. So this should automatically put you into Universe 2, and address automatically from there. Alright, so let's take that, and we'll do one more fixture type. Let's just do conventional lamps, right? So under the generic tab, we'll just do generic dimmer. Alright, so we'll do dimmer 1. And then let's put 16 of those. And we'll start them off at fixture ID 301. Alright, so now you should look like this. You'll notice that they're not grouped together, and for the sake of organization, it's usually better to have them grouped up. So what we can do here is you have to insert your groups as fixtures themselves. So what we'll do is we'll do Insert New Fixture, go over to the Library, Generic, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find Grouping. Or you could search for it, but it's right there. Right, and select it, and type Group 1. And we've got 3 different fixture types, so we'll go ahead and just do 3, and we'll leave it with no fixture ID for now. So in here you see we've got 3 groups, and you've got 3 triangles on the left side of them, so you can expand and collapse them. So what we'll do to get our fixtures into those groups is we'll just select them. So from top to bottom, we'll press, they'll all turn blue, and then you'll hit the Cut button. You can expand the group, and then hit the Paste button. It will ask you if you want to keep your absolute position and rotation in 3D space. We'll just do absolute, that'll be fine. We do the same thing for the quantum washes, cut and paste into the group. Keep the absolute positions, and same thing for the dimmers. Right in here. Now, I know I'm going fast, but that's okay. Feel free to rewatch the video. I'm just trying to cram a bunch of information into one video. Alright, if you feel necessary, you can rename your groups, but in this instance, I don't really need to. So we'll go ahead and save and exit the patch after hitting the X icon in the top right. And now, nothing's changed. And I'll show you how to change that. So what we'll do first is we want to visualize these lights. A great part about the MA3 software is that it comes with a built-in visualizer. So what we'll do is click on the top left of this blank space. So not the off button, but the blank space, and it'll give you this add window menu. We're in the common tab right now, and you'll see you've got common, data pools, presets, pools, tools, more, and all. We're going to stay in common, and we're just going to select 3D viewer. Right? That'll be our visualizer. So what we can do from here is, just for practice sake, we can go over here in this bottom left, and it'll give you resizing options. So you can drag it up, you can space it horizontally, you can do whatever you want. The only thing you can't do is rotate it, which I don't know why you'd want to, but that's fine. So right now we're going to do this. We're just going to leave it here, and we're going to full screen it. So if you remember from earlier what our fixture IDs are, right? We've got our eras, or the movers, in the 100 range. We've got the quantums in the 200 range, and we've got the dimmers in the 300 range. So all we're going to do is, we know we've got 12 eras, so we're just going to type 101, which would select fixture 101, but we want all the way through 112. So all we would do is type through, spelled THRU, and then 112. Alright, so now we've got them selected. Go ahead and select the setup button. If you don't select setup, you're not gonna get the menu that you need. So we're gonna go to setup, and we're gonna and you see when you've got setup selected, you're gonna have 3 options for the 3D space, as well as rotations for those 3 options for each dimension. So Z is going to be your up and down. So let's just put them up. The number that you get over here is going to be measured in meters. Unfortunately, there's no way to change that to feet, because we're dumb Americans, and everybody else uses the metric system, so that's fine. Let's space them out now. Now, it would be terrible if you had to do that individually, but luckily that we've got the align feature. If you used MA2, then you'll know what this does. All we're going to do is, it's going to mathematically divide and equally space them out. Right? So now they're spaced out correctly, and we're going to leave it like that. Alright, so in order to clear your selection, we're going to go to this at button in the bottom left, and we're just going to hit clear. Alright, so once you've hit clear, then it will remove it. If you accidentally hit the align button more than once, you can either click through until you see the divide symbol, or what you can do is you can hold and drag the left mouse button, and you get the entire menu of options. So we'll turn that back off, and we're going to select our quantum washes. So we'll do 201 through to 13, because we had 13 of those. Alright, we'll put them in the air, and we're going to do the same align trick, and we're going to scroll up on the mouse wheel. Alright, once you've got that, we'll just try to space it out. There you go. That's good. And now we've got, the last thing is our dimmers, which are in the 301 range. So we'll do 301 through 316. So we had 16 of those. So we're going to space it up. Put them a little higher. Actual spacing doesn't really matter for now, so don't worry too much about it if you're following along at home. But we're going to divide them out, and you'll notice they're facing down. This is because they are conventional lights, so they don't have any panning or tilting functions. So at this point, we'd actually use the rotate function. So here, we'll make sure a line is off, and we will rotate them towards the screen. All right. So I don't like pointing lights directly at the camera. That usually causes performance issues, but usually doesn't matter too much to most people. And you can always adjust where your camera's at. If you are on the menu and you hold the left click and the right click button, you can drag around. If you hold right click only, you can rotate, and left click will be your select. We'll mess around with that in a bit though. We'll get some bit more practice on that. So once you're done, then you clear your selection, and then we will click off of the setup button, and your stage is officially set up. So now, here comes the fun part. What we're going to do is start off with our groups. So what I like to do for our groups, we're going to set it up manually first, but I'll show you a little trick in a minute. So what we'll do is we'll open up the Add Window menu after we resize our 3D window. We'll go over to Data Pools, and we'll select Groups. So this is how we group our fixtures so we don't have to type in the fixture IDs every single time. So what we'll do is the same thing we did earlier. We can do 101 through 112. And there's multiple ways of doing this. You'll quickly find it's called MA3 because there's 3 ways to do everything. I'm joking. But there's multiple ways to do this, but what we're going to do the first way is we're going to store it to group 1. The first way we're going to store this is just by typing the store into the command line, and we're just going to click on group 1. It creates a group. It's just called group for now, but that's okay. You can rename it. And then what we can do here is you can type label and select it, and then you can rename it to whatever you want. So we'll rename it all eras. Alright, so that's our first group. When you select it, you'll notice they all become yellow, and that's how you know they're all selected. So we'll go ahead and clear out that selection, and we're going to store our next group using a different method. So this method is going to be using the 3D menu. We're just going to go and drag along, and we're going to select all of our quantums that way. So now that you've got them all selected, they're all going to be yellow. I'm going to show you a different way to store them. Once you've got your fixture selected, what you can do is go over to the group that you want to store them to, and you can just hold left click. Automatically created. You don't have to type anything into the command line, it's just automatically created. And then what we can do to rename it is different as well. What we'll do is hold left click again, and then you're going to swipe down. So this is called the swipey function, and I think it's really efficient. It really makes things go by way quicker. Every command that you'll usually need is right there. So what we'll do is when you've got your mouse hovering over label, we'll just release the left click, and then it'll open up that same label menu. So we'll just type quantum wash. Well, sorry, keep it consistent. Great. So now what we'll do is do the same thing over here for our dimmers. Once again, hold left click, swipe down, release on the label button, and call it all dimmers. Perfect. So at this point, how do you make your lights do anything? That's what this is all about, right? You can make groups all day, it's not going to impress a crowd. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our dimmers to start, and we're going to make them lighten up. Right? So down here, the official name for this area is the programmer. The programmer is the most essential tool of the entire console. Everything that happens to those lights originates from the programmer. So what we'll do is make sure that the dimmer tab is selected. The only attribute, the only function that these lights have is on or off. So all these other ones are gray, but this one's red. Right? This is red because it's got an available function. So what we'll do is if you scroll up on the mouse, you'll see they slowly start to turn on. And you can see the beams, they look all nice. And now they're fully open. If you quickly want them to be set to 0 or 100, again, there's different ways of doing it. I'll show you. What you can do is click, and you can go to make sure you're in channel sets, and you can go to dimmer closed or dimmer open. Or you can also go to the at key over here, and you can select 0 or full. All does the same thing, right? So we'll leave that. And now let's select our quantum washes. And you'll see that they've got more attributes that are in red. So that means they've got more available functions, right? So let's do the same thing. Let's turn those to full. Completely bright. You'll notice that they're a different color. This is because the built-in visualizer tries, and usually does a pretty good job, of just giving you a rough estimate of what the color temperature is. So conventional lights are going to have that more tungsten look, whereas LEDs are going to be more of a pure white. Right? So now that they're fully open, you can go to position, the position tab, and you've got P and T. This is going to be for your pan and your tilt. So let's tilt them up a little bit towards the camera. And then if you mess around with the pan, you can pan left and right, and you can have fun with that, right? So let's do that. Let's just pan that towards the camera. And then you'll see here over in the color tab, you've got different colors. You see that they all default to 100. This is because full RGB will give you white. So if you start to take away some of the red, you'll get cyan. If you start taking away the green and leave the blue at full, then you're only going to get blue. And if you set that to minimum, then it's going to be 0, and you've got no color, so you've got no light. Okay. So say we wanted green, you could set that to max and keep the other ones at 0, and that would be it. Alright, but that's a very slow and ineffective way of choosing colors. So how are we going to speed that up? I'll show you. What we'll do is we're going to give ourselves a little bit of real estate over here, and we're going to open up what's called the special dialog. Alright, in earlier versions this was called the color picker, but they've changed it now. What we're going to do is just select a little bit of real estate. By the way, the area that you select will be your size. If you just click, it will take up the entirety of the space among the x-axis and y-axis from where you click. So if I click here, it's going to create a window. So click common special dialog. That's from here as far this way as it can go. If I do this, it will leave out the space that I left out. Right, so what we'll do is we'll recreate this window up here, give us a little bit more space. And as you can see here, we've got a full color spectrum, right? So we've got our greens up here, our reds over here, and our blues over here. So the crosshair is all the way up in the green corner, and that's because our green is at maximum and everything else is at minimum. So what we can do is if you just left click and hold, you'll see the color starts to change. Right, if you bring it over here, it'll bring it up to white, and you can pick your cyan, magenta, and yellow. Let's pick whatever color you want. Right now, I'll just leave it at a cyan. Okay, and we're gonna look at our next attribute. Will be the beam. For those of you familiar with fixtures and their DMX attributes and their DMX functions, you'll know that the beam is really just controlling your strobes and your random strobes and things like that that manufacturers like to include. Every light's going to be different in this kind of area, but this function is always going to land in the beam attribute tab. So now let's move on to the focus attribute. You see for this light we only have zoom, so we can zoom in. I think this quantum wash is a little weird for the DMX profiles. If you open up the edit menu, then you can see all the channel sets are right here. So you've got wide, it'll open it up wide. We've got normal, we've got narrow. So if we go to normal and you start to, maybe I'll show that to you on the eras. But anyways, the visualizer is showing you the degree of zoom that the lens is currently outputting. And then of course you've got your control channels, so things like a fixture reset or color mix reset, dimmer curves, things like that. Those will all be stored here. So moving quickly on to the eras, our last light and the lights with the most functionality, you'll see every single attribute is red. That means they have an available function for every single attribute. So we'll go over to dimmer. We'll turn them all the way up to full. And just like the quantums, they turn up to white. If you see this happen, which this is a good thing that this is happening, you'll see that they start to pan and tilt together. This is for a very specific reason. It is because that you have your link values over here set to feature. So you absolutely want that set to single for pan and tilt. So now if I start to scroll up and down, they're now unlinked. So we'll point this at the camera again. And you've got your gobo attribute this time. So you'll see here that this light has 2 different gobo wheels. You can see all your gobos here with custom appearances, so you can kind of preview what the gobo looks like before you have to select it. And then up here we've got wheel spin, so if you want your gobo wheel to just spin continuously, this is where you would do it. So we're going to do this. We're going to set the ray brush gobo. Now it looks like the beam disappeared, but that's okay. What we can do is if you rotate the menu, if you rotate the camera, sorry, then you can see that they are projecting onto the floor, into the environment. So because of the fact that the gobo takes away so much light, the beams actually get dimmer. If you want to be able to see that, I will show it to you in a minute. I'll show you how to completely adjust the 3D menu. So here, this is a rotating gobo wheel. So what we can do is you can index them, or if you want them to completely rotate, you can set the rotate function, and they'll just rotate forever until the motors break. So now let me show you how to turn off a function. So we're going to reset our camera here. So if we want to turn off a function, you'll notice that these two have a gray color behind the values, and these two have a red bar behind the values. Now the meaning of the red bar means that there are currently active values in the programmer. And when these values are active, that means they're going to be stored and tracked into your sequences. So if you don't want these values stored, you would need to turn them off before you store them. So what we would do is right click, go over to specials, and you can turn it off. Another way you can do this is if you go to the command line, you can type the word off and then select whatever values you want to turn off. And it'll do the same thing. The bar will turn gray, and that'll be the indicator that it's no longer active. So we'll do the same thing for gobo 2. Show you again, channel sets. It'll give you all your gobos previewed in that menu right there, and then we can just tilt them up and down onto the wall there, and from there we can just reset our camera again and turn that back off. So we'll go to specials once again and turn it off. So the beams are up. We're gonna tilt this away from the camera, sorry. So from there, what we're gonna do is look at the colors once again. It's the exact same thing as the quantum wash. The beams, this light has more functions, so you'll have things like iris, where you can close the iris and make it a smaller beam. You know what we'll do is we're just going to select our other lights and we'll turn them off for now, just so you can see. So we'll set them to 0. There we go. So now you can see the air is a little bit more clear. Over in beam, turn the iris down, you can see the beam actually gets smaller. Alright, so we'll set this to default. Anything that has to do with lenses or focusing the visualizer isn't capable of previewing that. You would need either to see the fixtures in real life or use some sort of like fake focus from a visualizer, such as Depends or Capture or whatever the case may be. So now we can select our second page of functions just by going over here. So where it says beam 1 of 2, that means it's the first page of 2 pages. So if you just left click it, it'll say beam 2 of 2, and you've got more things. So E is going to be effect, and then E2 is going to be effect 2. What this is going to be is your prism, and you can tell that if you right click, effect wheel select, and prism 1 and 2. So what we can do here is turn on a prism. That will be displayed, and it's actually very nice, but it's very impactful on your computer. Your computer won't like you if you do too much of that, especially if you start making them rotate. So that with gobos, it's a quick way to make your computer hate you. Also a good way to make your room a lot warmer. So we'll turn these off. And now you've got the gist of that. Over in the focus, once again, the zoom, you'll be able to see. We can actually scroll up and down on this one, and you can see it start to incrementally get wider and more narrow. Like I said, focus you're not going to be able to see. It will look like it's doing nothing on the built-in visualizer, but practically every single light, even if it's the same model, is going to have a different response with the lensing and the motors and all that stuff. So it's better to just get the fine focus details when you're actually on a gig. So now, control, once again, all your control settings, all your functions that they've got built into the light. And then the last bar over here will be shapers. So these are going to be your framing shutters. So if we put these up on the wall, and we'll go ahead and zoom them in a bit, just so you can see each circle more clearly. Right? So over to shapers, blade 1A, blade 2A, blade 3A, blade forward A. These are going to be your top, left, bottom, and right. I don't know if it's in that order, probably not, but oh, maybe. Oh, look at this. Anyways, so that's your A's is going to be the main blade, and your B's are all going to be your rotation. So if I want to rotate the top blade, all I would do is just scroll up or scroll down. Alright, so it defaults to 0. You can bring it to the negatives to rotate it one way, or into the positives to rotate it another way. And we can turn it off to set it back to default. Now, you can do that for every single one. I think you get the idea. So that's the basics of the programmer. Now, let me show you some tricks for the 3D window and how you can actually make this look a bit better. So what we're going to do now is we'll go over here into the top left where it says MA. So once again, not the power button, but the MA button on the 3D menu. And you're going to get a bunch of different settings here. Right? So you got beam, spot, ambient, point light, luminous spread, and a bunch of different things over here. We're not going to worry about any of this. We're going to worry about just these faders should be enough to get you going. So if we take, let's just take all of our lights for now, and we'll put them at full. And we'll use this as a reference. What we want to do is take out some of the gray light in the room, right? So all you can see is the lights and the spots. So what we'll do is just where it says ambient, just pull this fader down to your liking. I like to take it all the way down, as well as the point light. And then even sometimes turn up the beam. You'll see it gets brighter, but the spotlight doesn't because it's on its own fader. So you can turn that up to your liking. So I'll leave it there. And this looks great for previews, but you'll notice now you can't see anything if you turn your lights off. If I select my lights. So if I turn that off, now you can't see anything, and it's as good as useless. And you don't want to have to go up and down every time you want to preview and all that stuff. So what you'll do is you'll actually store views. Right? So what you can do is if you have a 3D view, and you want to use this as your main view, what you can do is bring up your ambient light. So you want it there, and we'll bring up the point light a little bit too. What you can do is in this left bar over here, we can store a view. So I'm going to store this into 10 by using the swipey, and we're just going to say store. It'll automatically bring you the label menu. So what you can do is just type 3D light, and then what you can do is bring it down, and then you can store that to 11. Call that 3D dark. So now when we click between them, you can see that it changes. Perfect. If you ever want to overwrite it, or say you want to change something, you can always just do whatever changes you want, and you can just swipe down over it and restore it. So these buttons right here, these are all your monitors. So I'm only using one monitor, so the only one that's selected is going to be internal 1. If I wanted to store a certain view among multiple monitors, then you would select internal 2, 3, you would just set it to whatever monitors you want to store that view specifically to. And then you could say OK. So now that we've got this done, what we can do is start looking at what these other views are. So if you come from an MA2 background or even other consoles, then you'll have a better understanding of this, but we're going to go through the preset views and we're going to run through them real quick, just so I can show you what they're all about. So Era 800s, quantum washes, and dimmers, you'll notice those are the fixtures that we programmed, that we patched into our console. So this is called the fixture sheet. This is going to show you every single fixture that's in our show file and that is patched, and it's going to show you every single attribute. The colors and all this stuff is a bit more complicated. I'll go over that in a future video. This is going to be a full video series, by the way. But basically it shows you everything. It'll show you each light's fixture ID, each light's channel ID if you wanted to set those, each attribute, and what their current values are at. Right? So you can also select your lights through this menu as well. So if I wanted to select all my eras, what you could do is just do that. It just gives you a sheet view. Alright, so let's go over to the preset view, and you're going to see something that looks a little bit different now. What we've got here are our groups pool that we saw earlier, and our special dialog that we saw earlier. You'll notice it looks different though. I'll get onto that in a second. This thing over here called the selection grid, and this over here, this kind of cyan pool called shapers. Right, so we'll start from the bottom, we'll start from the top and we'll go to the bottom. What this pool up here is it's not particularly a shaper pool. It is a dynamic pool. So what is a dynamic pool? Right, if we delete this window by clicking on the blue space up here, or the MA logo, we can delete the window. And let's create a new pool just like the one that we just made. Right. So if you go over to presets, it's going to be this one here called dynamic. So dynamic is essentially going to give you the presets of whatever attribute is currently selected on the programmer. So you'll see if I select dimmer, it'll change up here to dimmer. Position, it'll change to position. Gobo, it changes. And you'll even notice that the number changes based on what the actual attribute is. So MA has very select numbers based on what attribute it is. Color is always going to be 4, dimmer is always going to be 1, and that'll make sense in a minute. So what we can do here is, you see we've got our dimmer attribute selected and we've got our dimmer pool open. So if I select my eras and I turn them all the way up to full, and we go ahead and just hold left click, you'll notice that they are all the way at full, and it's going to be just a white circle. This means completely on dimmer at max intensity. Right, so if we wanted to, say, store a half brightness, out of 100 we would just do half, which is 50, and that'll take them to a half intensity. So you'll see here they're at 50. Then we can just hold left click over here. It'll make a little slightly grayer icon. That means that's just a visual representation. And then we can set them to 0 and hold left click as well. And it's going to be completely black, indicating that they're completely off. So here you can see if you select them, you left click them, whatever lights you have selected are quickly going to go to whatever values you have them set at, which you can see here in the selection grid, which I'll go over in a second. You'll see that they update based on how bright they are, right? And as well as that, you can see how the colors actually change based on what color they're currently at. So let's set them to white. And let's talk about the selection grid. Right? So let's go over back to our 3D light. And you notice how whenever you select lights, up there in the top in green, it says planar selection, top to bottom, left to right. So every time you ever select anything in MA, it is always going to be put on an XYZ grid. That is going to be called your selection grid, right? So the first light that you select is automatically going to be put in the first cell. That next cell is going to be blue, indicating that the next fixture that is selected is going to be put in that cell. So it's all just one grid, selection grid, right? So if I select the next fixture, the next era, and we go back, you'll see it's now in the second cell. So if I clear this selection and I select all of them, once again, notice how it says top to bottom, left to right. We go over to our selection grid, automatically numbers them 101 to 112. Now, why is this important? It'll make sense in a future video. I'm just explaining you the basics right now, but you'll quickly find out that the selection grid is everything when it comes to making effects and what's called phasers, which I'll also show you in a future video. If you come from an MA2 background, you'll be excited to know that everything you know about the effect engine is completely useless. It's not, but it's completely different now. So now that we've covered the selection grid, I'll quickly wrap up the special dialog. Over here we've got color, and then you've also got the shapers. So earlier when we were adjusting the shapers using the actual values in the programmer, you can actually have a visual representation of them here. So let's open that up again. We're going to set it to 3D dark. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of space, and we'll open up the special dialog under the common tab. Right? So it'll automatically pull up color, but what we'll do is set it to shapers, and we'll open up the preset pool for the dimmers that we had earlier. So we just want specifically dimmer, so we'll just select dimmer, and you'll see that those presets that we made earlier are automatically here. Right? They're stored, no matter where you go, they're always going to be stored into the respective number. So if we open up the dimmer pool again, you'll see that max intensity is always going to be at 1. So we've got our eras selected. We'll set them to full by selecting 1 on the dimmer pool. And now let's mess around with the shapers again. As you can see, what I do over here by holding left click is displayed by the lights. So that's a really easy and fun way of adjusting your framing shutters. And it works for the rotation as well, so you can see what they're actually doing. Perfect. So if you want to clear that out, all you got to do is select your at, and if you hit the clear button once, you'll notice that they don't turn off. And why is that? I'll tell you. It's because of the fact that you've only cleared the selection. What you need to do is hit clear again, and you'll see that the lights are still on, but now your active values in the programmer have been erased. All we need to do now is hit clear again, and then everything's gone. So that's a very important thing that you need to remember about MA, is like MA2, you need to hit the clear button 3 times to completely erase everything that's in the programmer. So the rest of these views here, sequence sheet, phaser, 3D, help, we've already made our own 3D view, so you're not going to need this. All those other views I'm going to mention in future videos, and I'm going to help you wrap your head around this. I think this video has been long enough for anybody that's trying to get into it, and I think it's a great starting point from anybody that's especially moving from MA2, but even complete beginners should be able to take a very introductory guide from this video. I will be releasing more videos, once again, to help you get a better understanding. I really hope that you've got something out of this video, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Goodbye.